The prophet Micah, who lived in a small town outside Jerusalem, did not think things were going well in his society 3,000 years ago. He was concerned about abuses of power from the secular and religious authorities in his kingdom and the oppression of the people in his community. And he asked a very fundamental question about these serious conditions. He asked, "What would God have me do?" Or to put his question in more inclusive spiritual language, "What would the Spirit of love have me do?" And in response to this rhetorical question, he offered this: "I should walk humbly, I should love mercy, I should do justly." Let's now reflect on these guidelines from Micah and what they may mean for our own times by beginning with a story. In telling this story, I'm using information from the George Washington Institute for Religious Freedom and the book Holy Envy. The story begins. Back in 1790, when the U.S. Constitution had just been ratified, President Washington decided he would pay a goodwill visit to the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island was the last of the states to sign the Constitution on the dotted line. He took along with him on this visit the Secretary of State at the time, Thomas Jefferson. They sailed from New York City, then the American capital, in a little packet passenger boat to Newport, Rhode Island. There, on August 18th, officials of that city and representatives from various religious groups jockeyed for the honor of reading to the president letters of welcome to their city. Among them was Moses Sykes of the Hebrew congregation of Newport. In his letter, Moses expressed the hope that the new country would be, and I quote, "a government which to bigotry gives no sanction, to persecution no assistance, but generously affords to all liberty of conscience and deeming everyone, of whatever nation, tongue, or language, equal parts in the great governmental machine." This letter from Moses Sykes on behalf of the Hebrew congregation of Newport greatly inspired the president. George Washington responded directly to the letter just a few days later with a letter of his own to reassure the Hebrew congregation and affirm, and I quote again in part, that the government of the United States gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, and requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens. And Washington ended his letter with these words: "And that everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid." Signed, G. Washington, August 21st, 1790. Within this letter from George Washington, there is a biblical passage being quoted. That passage is from the book of Micah, chapter 4, verse 4, which we heard this morning in our readings. "Everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid." This is a line of hope and peace from the prophet Micah. This 1790s letter from George Washington about the importance of tolerance and acceptance and religious plurality is read aloud in a ceremony held each year to this very day by the still existing Hebrew congregation of Newport, Rhode Island. So, in order to walk humbly, I must realize that as a country, we represent many spiritual and religious traditions, truly out of many, one. In walking humbly, I must remember that the Native Americans and their spiritual practices preceded all the inhabitants of our country. That Buddhists came to the United States during the gold rush of the mid-1800s and established the predecessor of the now existing Buddhist Churches of America organization in 1899. In thinking about the religious diversity of this country, I must recall that about 1/3 of the African slaves brought to this country were Muslims, and that the first mosques in the United States were built in Maine, North Dakota, Michigan, and Indiana between 1915 and 1925. I could add threads from many other faith traditions, for humanists and for others whose spiritual beliefs do not include a belief in the God as described in the Bible, or those who identify as spiritual but not religious. Out of many, one. It was in the year after the visit of Washington and Jefferson to Rhode Island that the First Amendment to our Constitution was added, guaranteeing religious freedom in this country. The necessity for tolerance and the disavowal of bigotry for the success of this country was something that our founding fathers recognized. This is something they can be praised for, but not without serious caveats. They themselves were slaveholders. Native Americans were brutalized and their land stolen. Women and so many others who did not hold power in our society at that time were given no voice in that government. By 1820, John Quincy Adams called the disparity between our country's egalitarian aspirations and our actual treatment of minorities, particularly of blacks, the great and foul stain upon the North American Union. Walking Humbly tells us we are all human, all part of one family, and we must have tolerance for each other's differing perspective and experiences. As stated in the Course in Miracles, there is a tendency to fragment and then be concerned about the truth of just a little part of the whole. We are perhaps at a liminal point in our history in which we must decide if we believe in the power of love and tolerance or simply in the love of power. The prophet Micah gave us some additional guidance here beyond Walk Humbly. He said the Spirit of love asks that we love mercy. To me, loving mercy first requires that I love myself, offer myself compassion, and heal the traumas that I have endured. We must all do this. James Baldwin has said, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hates so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with the pain. If we want to feel empathy for others, we must first feel self-compassion, because hurt people lash out and hurt other people. We find ourselves in our present time in predicaments that make people angry, and I can see that hurt expressed in so many different ways. The Buddha says that those who are driven by anger are not the true charioteers, for they do not truly hold the reins. We as humans have a strong will to survive, for our families to survive, to be able to survive in community. Without healing in ourselves, in our society, systems of oppression will simply be repeated. When the pilgrims came to this land, they were escaping intolerance and religious persecution themselves. They were in many ways refugees. Yet many chose to reinstitute the system of intolerance that they had experienced in their old land, in their new land. Without experiencing a feeling of safety and peace, we are doomed to be driven by anger and fear. Angel Kyoto Williams is an ordained Zen Buddhist priest, only the second woman of African descent in the world to hold this honor. As the founder of the Center for Transformative Change, she has said that what we each need is the combination of a mind that wants to change the world and a mind that is steady, clear-seeing, and seeks change from a place of love. Micah tells us to love. The recently deceased civil rights leader, Representative John Lewis, was an ordained Baptist minister whose faith directed much of his life's work. He agreed with these sentiments when he said, "The idea of hate is too heavy a burden to bear. I don't want to go down that road. I've seen too much hate, too much violence, and I know that love is a better way." Micah tells us to love. And finally, Micah tells us to do justly, since justice is the way in which to demonstrate love within a society. To me, racial injustice and religious intolerance are strongly related. They each do not come from a place of love or a place of community. Real justice and transformative change can be sustainable only if they come from the power of love and not from the love of power. On June 5, 2020, the New Hampshire Council of Churches, of which our denomination is a member, released an open letter concerning racial injustice. I would like to share a part of it here. As faith leaders, we commit to stand with the victims of racism here in New Hampshire and in every place. We commit to look closely at our denominational bodies and in our congregations in order to pull down the racist structures that we find there. I pray that these words of the New Hampshire Council of Churches are as prophetic as the words of Micah. I pray that we can act out of love and achieve this goal, although knowing that change is hard. I have lived my life mostly in rural and suburban New England in states that are predominantly white. It has not been until this last 5 years, through my work with Concord area refugees, through my work with the inaugural Symposium on Race and Equity in New Hampshire, and through my seminary training, where I really got to listen to and feel the experiences of religiously and racially marginalized people in our society. And it is hard to fully feel this pain because it is deep and abiding. It shows up daily and in many guises. As someone who is white and belongs to a church with Christian roots, I think that this point in our history cries out for a period of introspection and self-audit as to my role and our culture's role in creating the status quo in religious and racial intolerance that brings us to our current time. This morning, we contemplated the words of hope from the prophet Micah. You are welcome to reflect on what these words mean to you in your life and in this time in our society. This is what my own reflection has found. Micah's message guides us to walk humbly as we are all in this together. Each of us holds a part of the truth, so it is paramount that everyone has a voice, or as Moses Sykes has put it, everyone should have equal parts in the great governance machine, and we should give to bigotry no sanction, and to persecution no assistance. Micah's message guides us to love mercy because love is reflected in love. The practice of mercy starts with self-compassion, so that inner healing can lead to the transformation of ourselves and others. Healing is necessary if we do not want to repeat the oppressions of the past. Finally, Micah's message guides us to do justly. To do justly so that everyone can live in their own home without fear, walk in their own neighborhoods in peace, and share in the prosperity that this nation can produce for all of its people. And as Micah said symbolically for our time, we can each and every one of us sit under our own vines and our own fig trees, for there will be none to make us afraid. Blessed be, Amen, Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.